You're listening to the podcast of the Academy of Professional Celebrants, the UK's premier Celebrant training provider. Whether you're an established celebrant, if you're just starting out, or if you're wondering if it's the career for you, our podcast is here to inspire, to help you tap into the knowledge and experience of our many celebrants and the wider industry. So, join with our host, Derek Duncan, as we dive into the world of celebrancy, sharing with you tips and advice from our extensive network of celebrants and others in the industry. We are the Academy of Professional Celebrants. We are here for you. Your success is our success.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Academy of Professional Celebrants podcast. We hope that the podcast continues to be a source of inspiration for you and that you find some useful tips in the conversation that follows. I'm your host, Derek Duncan, and joining me today is Berni Martin, who is based in Hampshire. Berni is making a huge success of her celebrancy business, which comes as little surprise with her previous successes in the world of business. Hello, Berni, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Derek. It's a pleasure.
And you've had a wide and varied career working in a number of different settings. You first of all trained as a nurse, but that wasn't something that you necessarily followed on as a career. I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about your interesting early career.
I certainly can. The reason why I trained as a nurse initially, my mum was a matron and ran her own care home, and we were born in Jersey, and I was quite lucky to have quite a few nanny and granddads, a little bit spoiled, you should say. I thought training as a nurse would be something beneficial. It would be always something to fall back on, something that was always needed. So being a little bit of an entertainer myself, and when family came round, always dancing and trying to impersonate Shirley Bassey with a hairbrush. My nan used to say, she should be on stage. Well, it did turn out that way. I started dancing around the south coast of England in holiday camps. And then back in the day, you used to get the stage newspaper. And in there was magician's assistant wanted for cruise ships. And I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. So I went for the audition along with 1,500 other girls, and I turned up and the queue was massive and I nearly got back in the car and didn't bother, but I actually got through all the auditions and I was picked, and that took me on a world adventure. I did that for 10 and a half years, traveling the world. We ran the world 3 times, an experience that I'll never forget. It was absolutely fantastic. The different nationalities, the places that I've seen, really then led me to be able to communicate and build very strong, lasting relationships with many different cultures. So that's a little bit of my varied career. It goes on much longer, Derek. I don't want really to bore you with any more.
No, I'm sure we'll hear some of it as we go along. Have you been sawn in half then, Berni?
Well, I have been beheaded,
okay,
sawn in half, impaled on a sword, set on fire, cut in 3, and completely disappeared.
And you're looking remarkably well on it.
Thank you. Now watch if I have a drink. There's a few holes that it comes out.
So all those travels that you made would have brought you, as you just said, into contact with lots of different cultures and different places. What's your favourite place and culture, and why is that the case?
Well, as you can appreciate, when you've travelled the world, you'd have seen some beautiful places, and all have different ways it touched you. One of the most wonderful places that if you close your eyes and you dream of paradise, it's this place. It's Bora Bora in the South Pacific. That is just heaven. It is the most beautiful place on earth. But also Egypt, for the history, Tutankhamun, and all the history that goes behind that is amazing. So it'd be very hard for me to list, but Bora Bora is definitely number one for me.
Tune in next week for Bernie and Derek's travel podcast. I've also been to Egypt, and it's a fantastic place with fantastic culture, and probably a whole other podcast about Egyptian death rituals in years gone by and things
Yes,
to explore.
absolutely.
So, like most of us, you kind of eventually leave those travels behind. You meet your husband, you have your family, and during that next period in your life, you set up a number of successful businesses. I wonder if you might talk us through some of those businesses. And although being an independent celebrant's on a smaller scale than the businesses we're going to talk about, I just wondered if there are insights and skills that are important in both fields.
I think if you are going to start up any business, um, it has to be something that you deeply want to do from the heart, especially if you want to make it a success. I have started up a number of businesses. Well, one of them back in the day was a cleaning business because I found that I needed the help at home, and I wasn't very happy with the standard. So I started my own business, which was very successful. I did things a lot differently to the norm. It grew. I had 27 girls working for me. I aimed at the upper end of the market, and I had Pristine Home Care, which was cleaning their homes, Pristine Auto Valley, which we cleaned their cars, and then Pristine Marine Clean, which we did their yachts. So it was very much down the Dorset way with Sandbanks, which is a very exclusive area.
Yes.
And it was very busy and it was very, very full on. We'll probably talk a little bit later, regarding my daughter, the reason why I stopped the business, because it was literally 24/7, 7 days a week, hugely successful, but my daughter needed me at a time. So I then closed the business down. I didn't want to sell it because I wanted something that I could go back to because we finished on a high. Even to this day, I still get some calls asking me whether I'm still in the business. I think the most important thing starting you be yourself.
Yes.
Don't try and be somebody you're not, and talk from the heart, because when you're honest and you're true, people will see that and they'll buy into you.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions on the WhatsApp site and on support calls at the moment about how to approach funeral directors and how to go about that conversation. And you've probably just hit the nail right on the head, whether you meant to or not there. If you're in it for the right reasons and you go in there and you are yourself, then they will warm to you and business will come your way.
And I totally agree with you. And I think I am a person that I do form very strong relationships with my background within the care sector because I worked with families. The big feedback that I had from funeral directors when I first made the appointments to go in and see them is that many a celebrant is walking in and talking all about themselves on how good they are.
Yes.
And that funeral director needs them. You're on the back foot then if you're going to go in like that. And that's the feedback I've had. So yeah, be yourself and talk from the heart, and the reasons why you've gone into it, I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And hopefully that's backed up with your folder full of leaflets and cards and your website and everything. But that conversation with the funeral director is really important.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you closed down the businesses and you mentioned that that was to do with your daughter, who I know was diagnosed with autism, and
Yeah.
at that point you decided to change direction yet again.
Yet
So
again,
I wonder what that change of direction involved, Bernie.
anybody that knows what autism is to live with will understand where I'm coming from. It's something that we don't really know an awful lot about. And when you have a child that has autism, you need to know as much as you can about it to be able to support your child in the right way. So I closed the business down. I then applied to an autistic school for a job, and I did that for 2 years and did all the training and got to know so much more about autism, which put me in a much better place with knowledge on how the best way I can support my daughter. And so I did that.
And in all those jobs up until this point of your story, what were your favorite aspects of the job, and what were the skills that you've brought forward into other jobs later on? We'll talk about Celebrancy later, but what were the...
I think my personality, because I read people quite well.
Yes.
And I'm very, very respectful. So always, if I meet somebody for the first time, it's Mr. Smith, unless they say, no, my name is John. I will then call them John, and I add humor, and I'm cheeky, but also only when I know it's appropriate. Yes. And my determination. I am a bit of a go-getter. I don't half do things. If I put my mind to it, I go 100%, and I look at every avenue, different ways to tackle things. I never stop.
And you've obviously found the work that you've done rewarding as well. I just wonder, working in the field of autism, what was the most rewarding aspect of that for you?
Is seeing the child grow, because
yes.
and become knowledgeable on their disorder, because they don't understand why they're behaving in a certain way, whether it's a certain sound or it's colours or it's people around them. And watching them grow and then be able to have a future is the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
Yes. So if you're listening to this podcast, then the Academy of Professional Celebrants is the UK's premier training provider. We offer training in person or online in all aspects of celebrancy, and we'll look after you every step of the way after you've completed your training. Please visit our website to find out where and when training is taking place, and we'd love you, like Berni, to become part of our ever-expanding Celebrant family. Berni and I are going to take a short break, and we will be back with you shortly.
One of the most commonly asked questions is a qualification necessary to become a professional celebrant? The simple answer is no. In this detailed explanation, we will discuss why we believe the current Off-Qual Celebrant qualification is unnecessary, a waste of time and money, and sets many aspiring celebrants up for failure. While qualifications are important for young individuals entering the workforce, for adults, practical skills training, competency, testimonials, and experience are more crucial for success than a piece of paper. Many individuals who have completed the course have backgrounds in education or teaching. Those who have not written an essay in years feel intimidated and excluded despite their natural abilities to excel as celebrants. As an enthusiastic training provider, we find it frustrating and misleading that some celebrants training organisations imply in their marketing that this qualification is essential. We are pleased to see more organisations acknowledging, albeit in small print on their website, that this qualification is not necessary. Let's address the 5 most common myths about the celebrancy qualification. The current certificate or diploma in civil celebrancy in the UK will not grant new legal powers if marriage laws change in England and Wales to allow independent celebrants to conduct legal marriage services. The existing qualification does not meet the requirements for legal marriage in Scotland, Australia, or New Zealand. A proper qualification for new legal marriage powers will be different from the current one. Claims that the qualification will be needed for funeral celebrancy regulation are false, and the qualification is not a prerequisite for working as a funeral celebrant. The Celebrant certificate and diploma do not indicate competency in the funeral or wedding industry. Completing the qualification through coursework does not guarantee actual competency in essential skills. The quality of Celebrant training is not ensured by delivering the qualification. Some training organisations focus on academic assessment rather than practical skills developments needed for client interactions and business success. Newly trained celebrants should focus on building networks and securing bookings rather than pursuing a qualification they do not need. Effective networking and client engagement are key to becoming a successful professional celebrant. If you wish to learn more about why our courses are popular, valuable and effective, please feel free to reach out to us on 0333 455 9029.
The Academy of Professional Celebrants.
Welcome back. Remember, if you want to take part in a future podcast, or if you have any thoughts on what you might want me to explore in future, then email me at derek@apcuk.org and we'll try to get something organised. That's derek@apcuk.org. Welcome back, Berni.
Hi, Derek.
Hello. Long time no see.
Absolutely.
We were talking before we broke there about the change of direction that your life took when your daughter was diagnosed with autism.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, we chatted a little off air there, but thankfully you managed to find the right setting for her, and that eventually allowed you to focus on a career again. And you mentioned that career a little earlier because you entered the care sector. And I wondered if you could talk a bit about that and the various roles that you took up within the care sector.
Well, my main role was customer relations manager, which was the first one that I went in. And although I didn't actually have any experience for the role, the area director took me as a wild card, so to speak. I absolutely flourished in the role. And the home that I was first in was rated inadequate by CQC and didn't have a lot of good reports. I got into the home and turned that home around, and within a year CQC came in, actually wrote about me in their report, and we got good throughout the board. I managed to get on TV with them, with events that I did for young carers that aren't seen and valued. So I did a lot within the community and built that up. The main thing was working with families and supporting them on that journey to find the right setting for their loved one. I'm a person that I need to believe in the home, and they are given good care, and I'm really happy with it. Otherwise, I would not sit with a family and tell them that this is the home for them. I'm very honest. But the company that I worked for was really good. I won Customer Relations Community of the Year award. I then went into the Chamber of Commerce and I won Businesswoman of the Year award for Salisbury Chamber of Commerce, which was really nice award to win. The role, I, again, loved it with my heart. Absolutely loved it. And I suppose you're thinking now, if you loved it that much, why did you leave? The care sector broke me. And I mean, it broke me because they are not about the care. They are not about the staff. They are all about money. And they talk about their ethos and their values, but it's not true. And I can't work like that, because not when I'm dealing with people's emotions and they're making very big decisions about their loved ones. And that's when I decided to leave.
Okay. Was this care of the elderly, Berni, or was
Yes.
it right? Okay.
Yeah, it's all care of the elderly, and they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you go into care homes and you find that the staff are lovely and things, but that's the staff as opposed to the kind of big company that's running the show,
Yeah.
as it were. I saw a lovely little thing online the other day of a kind of Glastonbury festival in a care home. And it was obvious that the residents were into this kind of thing that they were going to put online. And they were walking out maybe in their Zimmer frame with their handbag. And then one of the care attendants would take something out of their handbag, like I don't know, a sunscreen spray or something. And then they would sniff it and discover it's alcohol and confiscate it. And it was very funny, but it was obvious that the residents were finding joy in it as well. And
Oh,
it was just,
and it is, it's they run more like hotels now, so
yes.
it is like five-star luxury, all inclusive. I was the first one to get a champagne house. I contacted Moet and Lanson and had meetings with them to see whether they would be the first champagne house to work with a care home.
Okay.
And we got it, and Lanson now are working with one of the big companies as their main champagne house for the care sector, which caused some really big PR, as you can imagine. I didn't get even a thank you for that.
Okay. So yeah,
So
it's about the worth of your staff
it is.
and taking care of them. And if you don't do that, then as you say, for people like you who are entirely dedicated to the profession,
Yeah.
it eventually breaks you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
So,
It's a shame.
sorry, carers themselves are normally hugely gifted and they're really talented. They've got a huge amount of strength. They're skilled at their jobs, and yet are invariably very low paid. We might value them in all sorts of other ways, but
Mm.
not financially. And as I was alluding to a minute or two ago, occasionally, as a celebrant, we'll of course to go into a care home and speak with the staff, and that's often in a circumstance where the resident has passed away and there are no family left to talk to, and I've always been really impressed by how well the staff do know the residents, and more so how much they want that funeral service to be meaningful, to be dignified, to be respectful, to be loving, even if the only people who are going to be there are a handful of the staff from the home. So I just wondered if you'd like to give a shout out to carers, Bernie.
Oh, huge shout out. They are the most dedicated, warm, loving people on the planet. And what I absolutely adore in my time is every resident became family.
Yes. Now, if folk out there want to explore like caring a little bit more, I'm now going to plug another podcast, and that podcast is The Rest is Politics with Alistair Stewart and Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell, and they do a sub podcast on leadership, and the one with Angela Rayner, who used to herself be a carer, is just hugely enlightening about what goes on in that sector and how people should be valued more.
Mm, lovely.
So, Bernie, after spending that time in the care sector, you left, and we're getting now towards the chapter in your life where you decide to become a celebrant. Tell us, I think you've hinted at what made you become a celebrant, but tell us a little bit more about that journey to celebrancy.
Well, to be honest with you, Derek, it was not something that I first thought in my head. I had a lot of friends come up to me and said, "You'd be a really good celebrant," something that I never even sort of looked into. In the past 2 years, I've had to attend one, my ex-husband, my son found him passed away in his apartment,
Mhm.
which was a very tough and challenging time. He suffered a major heart attack, and my mum passed last June. And we used this funeral directors and their celebrant, Anna, and I'd actually mentioned her on my training. It was a huge inspiration to me. Absolutely wonderful. And it was then I thought, I really like this. There is something that's warming to me, that I feel that this could be the avenue. So I researched a lot to find the right training provider, and I did quite a bit of research, and the academy just came up top in every way, professional, the support, everything. So I booked myself on the course in Exeter in April. And it was the most amazing week I'd ever had. In fact, I was really sad when it came to an end. And I think that's a good training course.
Yes.
And from there, literally, I came back and I was all systems go. I sorted my leaflets, my phone number, my business cards, my folders, and then just started making appointments. And I was out and about everywhere. Everywhere I was at all the funeral directors in Hampshire and Dorset, and then hotels, weddings, florists, hairdressers, you name it. I was just everywhere.
Okay.
Very hard, you have to be determined. Funeral directors have their own celebrants that they use regular, they're dependent on them. Why are they going to take that chance on you? You've never done one. You've only done it in training. Huge risk.
Yes.
It's their name. How do they know that you're going to stand up there and freeze? You're a bit of stage fright. It is a risk. It's up to you on how you come across. And I walked into one funeral director's, and I have to say I was the fourth one that had been in that day.
Okay.
I thought, oh. And I sat and I had a chat, and she said, I'm going to be really honest with you. I like everything about you, and I'm going to give you this funeral. There and then, she said it to me. The other cards, she said she'd put in the bin. And she did. And was I nervous? I was,
of course,
petrified.
Yes.
But excited. And the adrenaline and the butterflies, it was like going on stage again,
I was going to say, if it went wrong, you had the advantage of being able to disappear completely.
Yes, I was hoping that there was a trapdoor underneath the lectern that I could just press the button and I'd go disappear. And after I did the service, and the response from the family was just amazing to me. And when we went back in and closed the door, the funeral director's words were to me, now then, you're a little liar, aren't you? I said, liar? She went, that never was your first one. I said, it really was. She goes, you're a natural. It was faultless. And since that day, I've had others coming in. She's recommended me to many others. And it's going from strength to strength. And to be honest, I can't get enough.
Yeah. And it's that phrase that Stuart uses often, funerals make funerals. So we were talking last night on the Zoom call with celebrants who are just starting out in the journey. And it's about getting that first funeral and being seen. And if you do a good job, then you are going to be used. And as you've just said, that funeral director is going to tell other funeral directors, and your business is going to grow as a result of that.
Mm.
So you've been on that round of visiting funeral directors, getting your website set up, your business cards ready, but you're not just solely focused on funerals. So have you visited wedding fairs and things like that, Berni?
Yes. So what I've done is, instead of, because it's all about cost,
Yes.
and everything else. So I've hooked up with a bridal shop, and so I share the stand at wedding fairs with them, and it works really well. So that reduces your costs down. And they're great, you know. Mainly it's the hotels that put on the weddings is the one really to get in with. Again, you know, you just do exactly the same format as what you did with going into the funeral directors.
Okay.
And it, you know, you just be yourself and talk about what you're going to deliver. I've got 2 booked weddings for next year. One is at this huge hotel, which is the Chewton Glen. Now, I don't know if any of the listeners or yourself would know this hotel, but all celebrities stay here, and their weddings average around about £60,000.
Okay.
It's so the wedding that the wedding coordinator Georgia has booked me on is for 3,500 people.
Wow.
But that's going to be my first one.
Okay.
No pressure. But anyway, so I'm very excited about that one.
Have you met with the couple yet?
Yes.
Yes.
And they're lovely.
Okay.
And of course, you know, very, very wealthy. And
Yes.
they love my approach and the love story. And again,
Yes.
with the training with Stuart, I love the piece in the training where he went to each individual and asked them 3 things that they love most about their other half, that they don't know that I'm even going to say it.
Okay.
So I've definitely put in that in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's beautiful, and that will be so nice to deliver that wedding.
And those wedding fairs are allowing you also to kind of connect with others in the wider industry as well. I think you mentioned florists and the wedding shop and things. So
Yes, and you know, and also you know, the cake shops, the wedding cakes. I'm in with them. They've got my leaflets in there. It's just making sure you market yourself, so don't leave any stone unturned, because everyone knows someone.
yes.
You don't have to limit yourself to the bridal shops or the florists or the cakes, the hair salons, hotels, coffee shops. I mean, how many people now are going into Costa's and sitting there? So I've got my leaflets in Costa.
Okay.
And, you know, care homes. Now, I've got lots of contacts within the care home industry. I was in it for quite a while. So again, it's not just about thinking funerals. They've got grandchildren. They've got great grandchildren.
Yes.
They'll be getting married. They'll be having babies.
Yeah.
So just keep all your options open, and just keep being out there. Keep popping in and seeing them, you know, with those fantastic cakes. You know, they love it. Or a bottle of cava.
I haven't done anything about wedding celebrancy yet. It wasn't something that was piquing my interest at the beginning. But what I have found that's interesting, and it kind of relates to what you're saying about care homes, is that I have had a number of inquiries about doing weddings because of funerals that I've done, and family members have been at the funeral and thought I'd like him to conduct the wedding. So
Yeah.
it's probably something that more people than me should maybe have a wee look at and top up our training with the Academy of Professional Celebrants by doing the wedding training as well as the funeral training.
Well, I think, yes, funerals are so fulfilling and rewarding, because, you know, once you've done that exceptional service, it's their last journey for their loved one, and you've delivered that. But don't leave yourself just for funerals. I would highly recommend that anyone that's considering doing the training with the academy, go on and do it all.
Yes.
So you've got other options open to you as well.
Yeah. One thing I noticed on your website, Bernie, that kind of marks you out as different from a lot of celebrants, and it's maybe something that other celebrants would maybe put their mind to. We
Mhm.
are a nation of animal lovers,
We are.
and I noticed on your website that you offer pet farewells. I
Yes.
just wondered if you'd tell us a little bit about that and what a ceremony would involve for a pet farewell.
Well, again, I did a little bit of research. A very close friend of mine lost her dog of 17 years, and she was heartbroken. And I think we look at pets as, they're a pet, but they're family. And when COVID broke and people were isolated, a lot of families bought their parents a pet. That
Yes.
pet then was their companion. And they built strong relationships. And I think we take it for granted that it is a member of our family. So my friend asked, would I do something? And I was delighted to do it, which then struck up that I think there's a bit of a calling here for some pet memorials. So basically, it's exactly the same as if you were doing it for a person.
Okay.
It's finding out, because they're family and what they've brought into the life. And there's funny stories. There's a lot, actually.
Yes.
And what they meant. And now that they've gone, and I deliver it in a way that I write the eulogy for the pet as if it was a person.
Yeah.
And I deliver it the same way, with passion and empathy. And I've hooked up with a memorial gift company. So once I've done the service and the service is over, I then present a gift. And it's the stones that I like, and it's engraved with the either the pet's name and the date on it. And
Okay.
then I give that to the family. So this week I have been out and about. I've got 152 vets to visit. I'm contacting equine centres because horses are beloved to a lot of people as well. Dog parlours, spas,
Yes.
dog walking groups, pet sitting companies. So yes, I've got a lot of work on doing that as well.
Yeah.
But it's lovely, and everyone has said it's going to be very busy, and I've got 2 bookings already from this.
I often think with my own dog, it would probably be easier to get funny stories about him when he passes than it would be about me myself.
Yeah.
For example, eating a whole chocolate Guinness cake, which was covered by a cloche on a table that he shouldn't have been able to get to. So, several
And
£100s of worth of a vet bill later, he was fine.
that's what it's about,
Yeah,
Derek.
they are part of the family.
They are very much part of the family, and it's given them, a fond farewell and to honour what they meant to you.
I think, Bernie, that's a lovely thought to end the podcast with, and it's been really good to chat with you. And I hope that comes across in the final podcast that people
Yeah,
are
I hope
listening to.
so.
So, on behalf of the Academy, thanks for your time today. I hope that and I actually don't hope, I know that your Celebrant business is going to continue to go from strength to strength. As is normal with the podcast, in a moment or two, I'll ask you to give a reading of a piece of poetry or prose that you find powerful when you read it at a service. But in the meantime, can I remind everybody else to get in contact with me if they have any ideas or they want to take part in future podcasts? And the brand new email address for that is derek@apcuk.org. That's derek@apcuk.org. Bernie, would you explain a little bit about the piece that you're about to read and then close the podcast with it? And thank you once more for a very enlightening chat with me today.
Thank you, Derek, for taking the time. It's been an absolute honour to be on this podcast, and I really hope that some things that I've said will benefit future candidates.
I think a lot will.
Thank you. So the piece that I would like to read, and it came up on my first funeral, and it really touched me. I'm not a very religious person at all, but it's all about what the family require, and that's what I listen to. It's about listening to the family. But this particular poem really touched my heart in so many ways. And I'm going to read it to you, and I think you'll know exactly what I mean. The poem is titled, God Looked Around His Garden. God looked around his garden and found an empty place. He then looked down upon his earth and saw your loving face. He put his arms around you and lifted you to rest. His garden must be beautiful. He only takes the best. He knew that you were suffering. He knew you were in pain and knew that you would never get well on earth again. He saw your path was difficult. He closed your tired eyes. He whispered to you, peace be thine, and gave you wings to fly. When we saw you sleeping, so calm and free of pain, we would not wish you back to earth to suffer once again. You've left us precious memories. Your love will be our guide. You live on through your children. You'll always be by our side. It broke our hearts to lose you, but you did not go alone. For part of us went with you on the day God called you home.
You've been listening to the podcast of the Academy of Professional Celebrants. We'd love you to be part of our community. We offer training in all aspects of celebrancy, so why not check out our training program on our website to see if there's a course you can take part in. We have trained hundreds of celebrants who are now well established in their own business. Our post-training support network is second to none, and you can be sure that help and inspiration is never more than a message away. Keep looking out for more podcasts coming soon. The Academy of Professional Celebrants. Your success is our success.